How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Appreciate you. Hit the subscribe button. Everybody else, welcome back. Welcome back if you've been here before. I'm going to tell a story today about the greatest fighter that I ever met in the prison system. Um, and also, I would have to say one of the best men that I ever met in the prison system. Those two combined. He was the greatest fighter that I ever met, and he was one of the best guys, one of the most humble guys I ever met. But I should say it was actually in jail. I didn't meet him in prison. I met him in jail. And those of you that don't know the difference between jail and prison, jail is when you're serving under 1 year. If the judge sentences you to 30 days, to 6 months, to 8 months, anything under a year, you do that in jail. You are also in jail if you are waiting to go up into prison. And in this instance, I met my friend Gino in jail. He was already sentenced to prison. He had done several years in prison, and he filed an appeal, and they moved him down to the jail to fight that appeal in court. And that's when I met him. I was 17, about 17, 18 years old at the time. He was much older than me, Gino. He was in his 30s, and he is one of the most unique individuals that I ever met in my life. He's definitely worthy of this video, and I will tell you some intense stories that took place with Gino and how our relationship went. So let me get right into it. And when I say this was the toughest guy. Someone asked me in the comments the other day, who is the craziest guy you ever met in prison? And I wouldn't say, a guy that just didn't care about anything. And I'm going to do a video on that soon, on that individual. But it's not that Gino was crazy and didn't care. The complete opposite. He was a very disciplined man, but he was the best fighter that I ever met, maybe in my life, not just in the prison system. He's probably the best fighter that I ever met in my life. I'll tell you why that is. I would also like to say that you've never heard me say this before. I have over 300 videos up. Gino was an innocent man, and this is why he did beat his appeal and go home. He was railroaded because he was financially successful, and there were some people that were after his money and framed him, and he would prove that later on and be released from incarceration. So he did several years in prison as an innocent man, Gino. What a great guy. So I met Gino when I was doing just about 60 days in the county jail. Got sentenced for an assault charge, and so I was a little nervous when I was walking into the county jail because I was young. I was about 17. I might have been 18. I'm not even sure, but I was right in that area. And I was young, and it was for an assault on a police officer. So they decided to put me in the roughest part of the jail as well on purpose, a little payback. And as I'm coming down the company, I'm just coming in. I have my bedroll, my bologna sandwich, my milk. I don't see another white face on the company. I don't see a Spanish face on the company. It's like they were throwing me to the wolves. And as I'm walking down the company, I take a glance and I see Gino sitting in his cell. And he is one of the biggest men that I've ever seen in my life. Gino's 6'5", 275 pounds. So I want you to think of that size. 6'5", 275, no fat, freak of nature. This guy was dwarfing NFL football players. I mean, he was that big, 6'5", 275. Hands like baseball mitts. So I take a glimpse of him as I'm walking past. I'm like, I got to talk to that guy. And I go in my cell and I put my stuff in my cell, and then I walk right to his cell, 14 cell. That's where he was. He was sitting on a milk crate. He had all his paperwork because he was working on his appeal. He had all his paperwork on his bed, sitting on a milk crate. He looked like he was taking up the whole cell. And I don't know anything. I'm green to this. I walk over to him. Hey, how you doing? And he had a thick accent. Gino was half Brazilian and half Sicilian, and born and raised in Brazil. We'll get to that. And we start talking. He's where you're from, this, that, blah, blah, blah. So I said, it looks a little crazy up here. You know what I mean? He says, don't worry, you're going to be fine. He says, this, that, don't worry about anything. And we start talking. We start getting to know one another, and I got a good feel of him right away. When he stands up and I look up at him, I'm like, holy crap, man! I can't believe how massive this dude is. He has no fat on his body. He's like a sculpted, like a sculpture, at 6'5", 275, no joke, and it was a night or two. We get to know one another. We start hanging out. We start breaking bread. We start eating. He gets me a good job. The officers know him. He got me a job as a porter so I can get out of the cell. And he was from about 4 or 5 towns away from me. As I said, he served a couple of years in prison. He was down on his appeal, and I was just doing the 60 days. And it's a couple of days later, a few days later, and we're out on the company. The cell doors are open. You're allowed to hang out on the company. They have tables there. There's guys playing chess, guys playing checkers, guys using the phone. Just a little hangout time for an hour or two outside of your cell, what they call gallery rec you know. And Gino says, "Let me talk to you down by yourself for a minute. Come on, let me talk to you." And he walks me down to the cell. At this time, maybe we're together about 3, 4 days hanging out. He walks me down to his cell and he puts me in my cell and then he locks me in my cell. But he's on the outside of the cell. He locked me in. I said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He says, "I got to go take care of something." And he had this accent, this Brazilian accent. And he says, "I got to go take care of something." So I said, "Well, what's up?" He has a little problem with a couple of other prisoners. So even though I'm still 17, 18, I'm a little wild. "Yo, let me out. I'll come help you." He said, "You just stay in here." He was looking out for me. He didn't want me to get involved. He didn't want me to get hurt. So I have my little mirror that he gave me, and I put the mirror up on the bars so I can see outside of the cell, so I can see down the company to see what's going on. And there's a Jamaican guy on the phone, and he had a beef with this Jamaican guy. I'll tell you what happened. What had happened was he had asked for the courtesy. Gino had a business on the street, and every night at 7:30, he used to call his wife, and his wife used to take care of some computer stuff. He used to explain to her how to do it on the phone, how to shut the system down, whatever it was. And so the guys on the company would give him the courtesy to do that. And he had asked this Jamaican if he could use the phone, and the Jamaican blew him off. Then he asked him again, and the Jamaican said 1 minute. And then he saw the guy hang up the phone, pick up the phone, and start to make another call. So Gino just walks down there. And this sounds really funny, this part of the story. I've told the story to a lot of my friends, and it's really funny to imagine it, but it was true. He walks down there, and the Jamaican dude is a big dude. He's short, but he's muscular. He's a big dude, young guy in his 20s. And Gino just walks down there. He doesn't say one word, and with an open hand, smacks him in the side of the face as he's on the telephone. Crack! And he's unconscious. From with an old, you got a guy smacking you in the face with hands that are the size of baseball mitts, and he's 6'5", 275. He smacks him in the face. The guy goes on the floor. He's unconscious, and two other guys stand up. Two of his boys stand up to attack Gino. And this is what I said was funny. All of a sudden, I see Gino go like this. It's like something you see in the movies. After he smacked him, I see him go like this, like in like a karate stance, like a martial arts stance. I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing? And the first guy that throws a punch, boom, elbow to the face, puts him down. The other guy tries, takes him off his feet, you can see how professional it was. You can see how fast it was. It was amazing to watch. I had never seen anything like it in my life. I never saw anything like it in my life. It was like watching a professional in UFC go through three grown men in a matter of 20 seconds. And all three of them were on the ground, and they didn't want no mas. They said no good, and the cop screams, tells Gino to get in his cell. Gino goes in his cell. They take those guys out of there, and the officers fell in love with Gino. They never saw anything like that either. They were like, that was amazing. And to fast forward a little bit, I end up talking to Gino later on the next day, because they keep him locked in his cell all night. The next day they let him out, and Everyone was looking at this guy like, what the hell is it? And I said, Gino, what was that? What was that? How did you learn how to fight like that? And he said, I grew up in Brazil. He says, and I've practiced jujitsu. He says, my entire life. He says, since I'm a little boy. And now he was in his mid 30s. He says, and I don't say this too because many of you, if you know about the UFC, the family that brought Ultimate Fighting to America was the Gracie family. Henzo Gracie, Hoist Gracie, the grandfather. They invented Gracie Jiu Jitsu. Gino actually trained with some of the Gracie family growing up in Brazil. Showed me the pictures of him with the Gracie family. This guy was a professional fighter. This guy was a master Brazilian Jiu Jitsu artist. And he went through three men like it was nothing. When I tell you in the beginning of the story that this man was very unique and talented, that it's not just because of the way he can fight. You'll see as the story goes on for a minute how unique and talented this guy is. So he's just an amazing fighter, an unbelievable fighter. I help Gino with his legal work every day. That's what I do with my day because he doesn't read or write great English. Okay, he speaks perfectly. He doesn't read or write great English, so I did a lot of typing for him. I would work for hours a day. We would sit in his cell. It was clear to see that he was innocent when I was going through all of his legal work. It was clear to see that he was framed by the police and as well as the people who set him up. The police were very corrupt in the case, and Gino wins his appeal and goes home. And when Gino wins his appeal and goes home, we exchange phone numbers because I was only doing 60 days. And when I would get out onto the street, the first person I would call is Gino. And I said, listen, I'm home. He says, okay, come to my house. I drive to his house. And when I get there, he opened up the garage and he said, that's for you, and he gave me a 1976 Chevy Nova that was absolutely gorgeous. It was turned into a race car. There wasn't a scratch on it. And he said, that's a gift. He said, for helping me with all my legal work. And I said, you have to be kidding me. And he gave me a 1976 Chevy Nova. I don't have a great picture of it, but that's a picture of the car right there. Absolutely beautiful. And it was one of my pride and joys. And Gino and I start to hang out every day. Gino also won the silver medal in what's called the Empire State Games. He competed in the Empire State Games. He won the silver medal in what's called the clean and jerk, when you pick the weight up off the floor, put it here, and then go up over your head. He did it with some ridiculous number, over 500 pounds. I don't know what the exact number was, but so he was a strong power lifter, almost an Olympic power lifter, a amazing martial artist, and we start spending a lot of time together. The guy was unique. If your oil burner broke, he can fix it. If your roof had a hole in it, let's go up on the roof and fix the hole. I did all these things with him. If the water heater broke, if plumbing, electrical, he was just extremely, extremely talented with his hands. He was so massive of a man. It was incredible. I remember the first time I walked him in my mother's house. I was introducing him to my mother. He has to duck to get into the doors, and my mother comes out from the back room and she sees Gino. I said, Ma, this is my friend Gino. And she's standing there with her mouth open. Oh my God. And she starts squeezing him. What is this? She goes, holy shit. This is a man. He's blushing. He's massive, and we would have a lot of good times together, a lot of good times together. I saw him knock another guy out on the street one time at a gas station. We had pulled into a gas station. I don't need to take you through the whole story. The guy that was pumping the gas tried to rob him for some money. Tried to stick an extra $5 in his pocket. Let's say he pumped $15 worth of gas. He tried to charge Gino 20. I caught it at the corner of my eye, and I told Gino about it. I didn't think nothing was going to happen. I said, "Yo, that guy just beat you." He said, "What do you mean beat me?" I said, Gino didn't know how to curse good. He was very funny. He didn't know how to curse because he had a foreign accent, So I said, listen, he charged you $20. He only gave you $15 worth of gas. He goes, he think I'm mother bitcher? You think I'm mother bitcher? I said, Gino, forget it, forget it. Gino gets out of the car, tells him, give me the money. The guy says, I don't know what you're talking about. Boom! Over. Right? I said, oh my God, Gino, you're going to go back to jail. What are you doing? You can't knock people out like that, you know? And another funny one is he tells me he did some security work. He did bouncer work in Manhattan. And he tells me, yo, come work with me. So I said, Gino, I can't take that job. He says, yeah, you can. You're a tough kid. You're a tough kid. So me and Gino used to fight all the time. We used to fight. We used to wrestle. He used to hurt me bad. He put me in the hospital once on accident just by showing me. He goes, I'm going to show you how to really intimidate someone with a push. And he pushed me so hard in a special way that he hurt the vertebrae in my back, sent me to the emergency room. You know, a couple of times when my friends were over and I introduced them to Gino, I said he was in the yard playing with some puppies. I said, come on, let's go attack him. Because Gino loves the roughhouse, you know. I said, let's go. They said, we're not messing with that dude. You know what I mean? Next thing you know, he's beating up four of us, throwing kicks. He said, you want to play? We play rough. He used to hurt me all the time, man. Gino used to hurt me all the time. Now I forget the story I was telling you. Oh, the bouncer. He brings me to a club in Manhattan. I said, Gino, I'm too small for that, man. I'm 5'6", 200 pounds. He goes, no, you'll be fine. He goes, you're going to work the door. Just when they work the door, you pat them down. They go through a metal detector. He says, I'm going to be in the back on the dance floor. It was a Korean after hours club, right? A real shady place. I definitely didn't belong there, but they hired Gino to do security in the back. And the first night there, a fight breaks out with all these Koreans. I'm like, I'm out of here, man. I'm out of here. I'm not doing that with you, man. Because he was a big dude, it was easy for him. He was mad. He's a professional fighter, man. So, yeah, he was very unique, man. Gino was very unique, and I would spend a lot of great time, a lot of time with this guy. He'd come over my house, and we'd break bread together. We'd go to dinner together, and then I end up a few years later. I did a lot with him. Then a few years later, I end up going away, to prison, and he came to visit me in prison a couple of times when I first went in there. He popped up and he started visiting me, and then life went on. I kind of lost touch with Gino, after I had to go upstate and do these 17 years, and when I come home, I says I got to find this guy. You know what I mean? And I start searching on the computer to try and find him. He's not an easy guy to find. I went to his house. He didn't live there anymore. He was gone. I knocked on the door. I asked the new residents if they knew where he was. I couldn't. They didn't know where he was. I started. He doesn't do social media. He doesn't do Facebook. He doesn't do Instagram. None of that. I knew he wouldn't do any of that. He was a real old school type Brazilian guy, and I end up just searching I find someone with his last name on the computer, and I contact them, and I said, listen, if you are related to Gino, da, da, da. I explain how I met him and how I knew him, and the person gets back to me and says, who is this? And I says, I explained to you, I'm a friend of Gino's. I'm a lifelong friend of him. We go back many years. And then the person says, why are you contacting me? And so I felt like I was offending them a little. I didn't know what was going on. And I said, listen, I explained to you. I said, that this guy was something that meant a great deal to me. And I've been searching for him for many years. And they messaged me back and said, Gino was killed 2 days ago in a car accident, driving to go see his daughter in college. He fell asleep behind the wheel and he died. And they sent me the newspaper article, and I read it, and I was in tears. It was mind blowing that this talented, massive machine, with all his ability, would fall asleep behind the wheel of a car driving upstate and crash into a tree. It was really sad, man, that such a unique person would lose his life that way. A man who won the silver medal, a man who was a black belt in jiu-jitsu, a man who was 6'5", 275 pounds of muscle. uh, would lose his life falling asleep behind the wheel. But he was the best fighter that I ever met in the prison system, in jail. He was one of the greatest guys that I ever met in jail or in my life. I love that man. I love Gino, man. He always have a place in my heart. Anytime I brought him anywhere, it looked like I had a bodyguard with me. I used to tell him, put a suit on when we were going out. I said, put a suit on. It makes me look like I have security. Makes me look like I'm powerful and rich when I have you next to me. He just demanded attention wherever he went. People would look at him wherever he went. And the pictures that I show you really don't even do him justice to how big this guy really was. Yeah, man, he was special. I wish I still had that car he gave me too. That would be something if I still had that car. But life went on, you know. And so that was a story about the best fighter that I ever met in the prison system. I'll talk, and one of the best guys. I'll talk to you guys later.